What should you be budgeting for the 2016-17 pay review? Well, the headline figure I'm going to give you is the same as we've said for many years. It's between 2 and 2.5%. But actually, there's a figure beneath that I want to talk about, which is probably more interesting. The Office of National Statistics every year publish a figure where they look at a cohort of employees, those people that have been in employment for more than a year, and they look at what's happened to their pay. And interestingly, for the last couple of years, their pay review has been more like 4.1, 4.3%. So what we're seeing is that although companies are giving us a headline figure of between 2 and 2.5%, there's actually a lot of money sloshing around in a grey economy, which is going to other individuals in the business. And that's something to be aware of when you're both recruiting and trying to retain your top talent. The economy grew at about 2.4% in 2015, and it's predicted to grow about the same in 2016. So there's a reasonable amount of growth underlying the economy. The big difference that we've seen over the last couple of years is the fall in unemployment. So unemployment at the moment is 5.5%, predicted to drop to 5.2%. That's really dropped over the last couple of years, where we'd seen it standing at over 7%. What that means in practice is that there isn't a pool of cheap labour available, and we're starting to see organisations really focusing on the employees that they have and making the most of that and engaging them in the business. The impact of the national living wage is going to be quite significant. So as you know, the government have increased the minimum wage for those aged 25 and over to the national living wage, and that comes into effect from the 1st of April. It means that people will receive, if they're on the minimum wage now, they'll receive a 7.5% increase. Most of our clients have said to us that they can manage that this year, but increasingly they're worrying about how they're going to budget for it in future years, because the reality is that by 2019-2020, pay levels at the minimum level for those over 25 will be more like £9.50 an hour, and organisations are struggling to work out how they're going to fund that. The wider implication is also that for those individuals whose pay has risen over a number of years and they've gradually earned those pay rises, what they're seeing is that their colleagues, the differential between them and their colleagues is really starting to be eroded, and there's a sense of unfairness, and somehow that doesn't feel quite right. So it is a real headache for businesses. The story is broadly the same for all industries and sectors. So we're seeing pay rises of between 2 and 2.5% across private sector industry. The only exception to that is in construction, where pay rises are running at more like 3%. But for those clients in construction and infrastructure, they will know that in reality, for top talent, pay rises are significantly higher than that. The most important thing to remember is that really it's more about talent than about sectors. The big things happening in Rewarder 2016 are wider than just pay settlements. So what we're starting to see is an incremental change driven by government, where society are starting to see two things. One is that people should be paid fairly, and that comes onto gender pay. And the second thing is that people should be treated with respect, and that means the national living wage is being imposed. And those two changes are little nudges by the government, which they hope will be taken up. Gender pay, you will be required to publish your information, and they're talking about league tables and name and shaming individual companies. That's a real change in the way that government have got involved in pay in the past. The regulations that have just come out, which have come out for consultation, we can see that you're going to have to publish details about your pay in quartiles, so relatively how much are men and women paid in different groups. And the other big thing that we need to look at is bonus. So where organisations at the moment are able to make bonus payments sort of under the radar, as it were, under current equal pay legislation, these new regulations on gender pay reporting mean that clients are coming to us and saying, how can I make sure that my bonus payments and my bonus structure is fair? The Office for National Statistics tell us that the gender pay gap is about 19% on base pay, but when it comes to bonus, it's 57%. So this is a real issue for clients. So what does this all mean for HR? The first point is, with the pay pot being 2.5%, don't be fooled that that's all you may need to spend on your top talent. Think about who those individuals are and consider the flight risk. It's important that if you have got any spare money, that you're directing it to your real top talent and not just to those who shout loudest. The second point is that with skill shortages, unemployment falling, and the fact that it's become much more difficult to migrate employees from outside the EU, there is a real shortage of talent. And therefore, working with what you've got, engaging those employees and making sure they'll walk through walls for you rather than out of the door is your key goal for 2016.